The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, forever. Yeah, pretty much replace the he or Lord with super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. What's up? Mental handbags. And it speaks to me, certainly. We're going out of the truck stop. Where are we? Somewhere in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, one of the states most associated with all things demonic and satanic. If you're unaware, where we headed? Where we going? Ohio, I think? And then right back to Pennsylvania. How about that? Hell, I've been waiting for over an hour to be able to start my day. Eventually, perhaps I will master resting with the right amount of time, because I certainly could have gotten another hour of rest. I remember the days of waking up in the morning and being able to hit the alarm, snooze repeatedly, and taking quite some time to drag myself from that groggy state. However, more often than not, I wake up and I'm pretty quickly wide awake. Some of that probably goes along with the truck driving, I would imagine. Yeah, buddy, just go ahead and roll out there. Don't let. I could have just went around you, but anyway, I'm not gonna get irritated. He probably thought he was in my way, but I was about to drive around this guy. So much so I thought he was parked. It's unexpected. That's what's annoying me. Although correctly, as we talk about on these live streams, it's my failing to identify with my true nature for every moment. So let me go back to that, if I may. He thought he's doing the right thing. It was more of the startling nature, because he looked like this truck in front of me looked like he was, parked for an extended period of time. He saw me, was probably looking at his phone before exiting the truck stop. Where are we going? West? Yeah, west. No harm, no foul. And that's how quickly it happens, folks. Especially for somebody like me. I can go from zero to irritated and annoyed quite quickly. So give me just a moment. And this is, some form of spiritual attack, right? Whether it's, whatever those forces are in this realm of death and destruction. I've been conscious for almost 2 hours this morning. And, the very moment I had begun the live stream and dropped my guard the most, right? Here comes something that's sure to annoy me, quite thoroughly, based on my own pet peeves, right? Silly humans. Silly humans. And now I see the truckers parked on the shoulder near the exit of the truck stop I just left. Dangerous, to some extent. And there were parking spots at the truck stop. Now, some of them require payment. Some truckers don't have the money, number one. Some just will never pay for parking. Can't say I blame them. I pay for the convenience, although not every day. I did not pay last night. And shout out to this company I'm driving for, or with rather, at least for now, operating me based on my preferred hours. So, before I express overly negatively in this moment. What a blessing, by the way. Good morning, Dystopia. The live viewers and listeners are probably the up all night crew, I expect. Few are foolish enough as me to have already slept and awakened. It was barely today when I woke up. In fact, I think it was still yesterday. It was like 11:50. Yeah. But doing the old body scan with the meditation, my breathing's been a little, I could tell, a little, what I would call, I guess, like stressful, kind of based on some stress. Not that I'm stressing. It's, in fact, what I'm observing, it's my own, when I say that I have a motor, I have this, something in me that wants to, strive and go and get the job done, right? So sometimes when I wake up in the morning or at night, technically, at times, generally it's past midnight though, but that can seemingly contribute to a certain physiological state where as soon as I'm waking up, I'll notice certain types of thoughts. And I know from experience, those thoughts are associated with the actual physiology. So it's the body in a way experiencing stress. But then as I harp on this concept of mind, body, and spirit, or spiritual system, I suppose, because the emotions have to get worked in there somewhere, right? So where is the separation between the human, whatever the human is, and my assertions of, my true nature being one with the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, which is a knowing that I know that. Again, there has to be room for doubt. That's not a concept I'm able to present to another person and say, here's my evidence, and my evidence is my own experience. Well, that's called an anecdote, sir, in that context. I do enjoy the driving, though. Much of truck driving, in my experience, is the driver managing the driver, realistically, which sounds a bit redundant. But, so I'm noticing, and some of this may come with the short period of sleep, some pain and discomfort in my physical tissues in a specific area of my body that historically I associate with past traumas, or more correctly, emotional states that I chose to repress in the past instead of moving through them consciously in the moment. And humans certainly exhibit a great capacity for repression. And my contention has been and remains, repression is always harmful to the individual or an individual. Coming up on a lane closure, so we better slow our roll here. Read the signs, Benton. And another part of my experience over many years of meditatively directing my focus into those tissues in order to discover, what exactly has become trapped energetically in the sensations of the body. And, my experience has been in that the more recent, the lesser forms and basically the easiest to release uh, of those stagnated energies, that basically all the easier work is done. All that's left is the most difficult, most arduous, most confusing, because how much of that repression is especially somebody like me, most of it occurred at a time in which I had little to no grasp of the meaning or lack thereof, or significance more correctly, or root causes of those feelings or emotions. A person who came out of the box with a low emotional intelligence, and then over many years, I have developed something of an emotional intelligence. And this does tie into some points I was making yesterday, which is, um, give me just a second. I don't even know, did the lane end yet? I guess it did. Now we can pass. Um, did I lose my point? I might have lost my point there. Shoot. It'll come to me. I trust that the idea shall return. Yet tied into a point that I remember beginning to make yesterday, so it's probably a key point, because it has escaped me yet again. Bear with me, folks. And this I can tell back to discussions of my own state. Mentally, I'm not nearly as sharp as I was yesterday. That is for sure. I've already known that this morning. So, and I accept that. I will. I choose not to resist. Commonly a human would, make excuses, seek to dismiss or deny, the reality, based on what? Well, partially based on something we talked about yesterday, being how the realm markets to us, and then just a very human thing of not wanting to accept something that seems negative about oneself. However, I reframe that and say, well, is it reasonable then? So here's the brutal application of logic. Okay, well, how reasonable or unreasonable would it be for me to then apply a principle of, is it realistic that every single morning when I start my day, I will be, sharp enough and with it enough to perform at a very at a high level, an arguably high level on a live stream, especially in an unprepared for, shoot from the hip, speaking extemporaneously off the dome for extended periods of time, right? Well, that doesn't seem realistic. In fact, back to the brutal application of logic, I don't remember, it had something to do with working a job or employment. It might have been some sort of temporary or short time work, when I was living in the streets with nothing, perhaps. But I remember someone sort of, rebuking or critiquing or, correcting my job performance. But the way in which, and I don't remember the specifics, but the way in which the critique was delivered, my response was, oh, well, let's be clear, if the expectation is that I'm never going to make a mistake or I will never be seen to be in error, let's go ahead and correct that record right now, because if that's the expectation, I will not be able to meet that expectation going forward. So let's just, pretty pleased with sugar on top, accept that there will be errors made by yours truly. So, and part of that is a setting of a boundary of I refuse to accept the frame of reference of the other person, hence the reframing, because if I'm dumb enough to allow the other person, the employer, perhaps in this scenario, to apply that to me, how much foolishness and folly will result by me, again, my own nature of wanting to perform up to the highest level I'm capable, right? But I'm just that way. Now, show me a human, I'll show you a hypocrite. My performance regularly falls nowhere near that goal or aim. Now, I would argue that whatever effectiveness and hard work and determination and grind, and this is a hustle and a grind to even do this job in the first place. I would assert that a lot of that comes down to that intention within myself, even if only 50% of that expresses at a given time. Like that's how great that force is within me, or that sentiment or desire. And probably, again, has something to do with trauma or PTSD, as much as I'm not that big of a fan of these concepts as used, commonly. Anyway. This coffee tastes kind of funny. I'm wondering if somebody spiked the punch bowl. A little taste to it. That'd be a hell of a thing. Man, they were working on this section of I-80 the years ago, the last time I came through here. What is this, man? Because when I was running with ART Transportation, I came to PA, but I don't think I ever came. Oh, yeah, it's a toll road. So, yeah, I did not take the tolls back then with that company. Yeah, I wasn't on this road. It's been years. All of this bullshit was under construction then. Looks exactly the same. Now, maybe it's a different stretch of road, but, what even is this? Well, I guess I've lost my earlier point, but that's okay. We will move on to other points. But if I go back to what's going on in my body, so I'm having these, back to the unrepressing of the trauma, the releasing of it. Well, the only way out is through. In fact, what caused the need to move through the stagnated energy was the refusal to move through it in the first place. And, early on in my practices, I realized, oh, wow, I have not only have I undergone repeated processes that have led to this stagnated energy within my physical form and energetically and spiritually, and it's harming me. And I'm allowing that and have allowed it. It is a direct result of using my creative force to create a false reality and inhabit it. The false reality being, as the emotions are generated, through, again, a very problematic childhood, and I'm not here to whine and cry about that. That was obviously a blessing / curse. It's all blessings. Well, yeah, it's all curses. If it's all blessings, and this is the all truths are merely half truths idea from the Kabbalion, right? Saying it's all blessings is the exact same thing as saying it's all curses. Meanwhile, if someone looks at their life and believes that all that one is experiencing is representative of curses, well, logically now, okay, there's blessings in that. What is the blessings in these curses? And I know that's not making a lot of sense, and I'm not even sure what I mean by that until I come up with some sort of real world example. Oh, getting over my skis a bit, right? Thank you for listening. The few of the proud, perhaps. Oh, right. That's not supposed to be prideful. I forgot. That's toxic positive. That's applying toxic positivity, right? Let's all, at the level of a social contract, let's condition ourselves not to ever be seen as prideful. Meanwhile, what you gonna tell a male Leo with historically high testosterone about pride? Because what is Again, all truths are merely half truths. Like, so on a spectrum of pride, what's on the other end of pride? What's on the other end of pride is humility, bozos. So I'm pretty sure I got my life. I look back on years of my early life was a seemingly never ending series of my head expanding, the big head, arrogance, pride, ego, vanity, but always followed by the fall of being humble, right? The realm humbling me repeatedly. And then so much so that, early on in the meditation and beginning to move inward and observe the inner space, just watching it happen, like watching, here come the pride, here come the vanity, here come the ego, and knowing, well, okay, the humiliation, right? The being humbled is sure to follow, right? I have a lot of experience with that cycle, so there's really nothing anybody could tell me other than to remind me, hey, bozo, you're puffed up with pride again. And it's like, oh, you think I don't know that? I think it's funny at this point, but yeah, absolutely. And then what I'm noticing is that the periods of being puffed up with pride are much shorter, and then the humiliation or being humbled, although I'm not wired for humiliation, and that's a completely separate topic. But then the humility is like it arrives quicker and quicker, right? Almost as a self correction, like a reminder. Okay, go back to humility. Even as one shout out to Krishnamurti, who would say, well, the moment one puts energy, actively into trying to be humble, that would in fact make humility impossible. Humility being, you know, not experienced in that form. And unfortunately, we're now making the mistake of trying to pass going uphill. This is not going to happen. Thankfully, there's no traffic. This truck will not climb a hill. This is why when I first heard this company had a mix of brands of tractors, I said, give me one of them Volvos. I've never driven a Volvo that would not go up a damn hill. It's Freightliner, and it's the gearing, it's the transmission. It will not. It's the final drive gear, the final gear drive ratio, the so-called rear end that gears. If anybody's into muscle cars, same concept. Final drive. Anyway, final gear ratio. Oh, and we got a fuel stop at 73 miles that cannot be missed since the company says no fueling in the state of Ohio. And I know I'm all over the place, scattershot style. But so back to these sensations in my body, I know number one from the area of the body that's what that is, that sensation. And I suspect, many, if not most of you, if not effectively all that would listen to this, have your own versions of this. I would almost bet money, because it seems to me like effectively all humans, to varying degrees, you deal with emotions with repression. However, I've talked about in the past being my experience in the present moment is via thoughts and ideas and concepts versus what I estimate to be 85% of everybody. It's they're feeling and experiencing the present moment emotionally. So, perhaps that lends itself to less repression, and perhaps that lends me to being, more likely in the past to have repressed. And then what I was trying to say early on in my practices, once I became aware of this process, I was able to then choose through discipline. Okay, I refuse to add to this burden. I discontinued whatever that process is of refusing to accept the painful emotions of the present moment, because I do in fact feel in the moment oftentimes. I'm not processing reality first and foremost through emotion. That's what I'm asserting here. It's through thoughts and ideas and concepts and perceptions, by the way, which would include intuition. Yeah, I still have very strong feelings. So for you, and that has led to emotional intelligence, because in order to, so what the repression was doing was allowing me to not have to examine whatever meaning, what is the meaning of this feeling, right? Whereas I'm a, feelings are stupid type of person. Like, who cares about my stupid fucking feelings? Well, also, fuck you. I'm a, historically a fuck your feelings kind of person, or, well, that's your fucking problem, right? I have my own feelings, but that I wasn't dealing with properly, right? Well, many, many years of learning how to deal with them, but still dealing with the emotions of 1986, perhaps, whatever was going on in Little Benton when in 1986 he was knocking on people's doors, in a racked with fear, negative states of all type, social anxiety, right? Uh, Social anxiety. Well, I didn't even know what that was, right? Never heard the term. I guess I knew of anxiety as a word, and again, back to the low emotional IQ, I didn't even know what I was experiencing. So probably repression was all I could do to get through the moment, you know. And this is what I mean when I talk about my psyche being split, shattered from very, very early on, right? Probably from the very first moments that my parents began taking me to the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Blessing slash curse, curse slash blessing. I certainly would not be capable of these live streams, if not for some of that ability was born out of my experience in what the Jehovah's Witnesses refer to as the theocratic ministry, or their theocratic ministry, right? So back to the trauma, or the low levels. So if what I'm asserting is true, what I know to be true, if one is willing to accept within myself my true nature being one with the most super intelligent, basically the light, the highest levels of vibrational frequency. Well, then also what is possible in this realm at the level of my direct experience is, and I suspect this to be the case for others, although again, back to solipsism, I can never be completely sure of this, but most likely, based on deductive reasoning, this is true for others. That this energy, I'm going to heal. So part of the healing process is to direct focus into those areas and then experience whatever that is, emotional, right? And then how? Okay, so back to yesterday's live stream, how? Well, by treating it, by utilizing the most super intelligent force of love possible to meet that negative, stagnated, low level energy, again, to love my enemy within myself. If that is representative of something that's in opposition to, how I choose to live and operate day to day, moment by moment, and hate, by the way, hate cannot drive out hate. Now we get into concepts around, Jesus in the Bible talking about, something about Satan's kingdom, how can hate drive out hate? Something about a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand, or whatever. This is also something akin to, the level of consciousness that created the problems is not capable of resolving the problems. So, uh, so more or less recognizing the existence of these stagnated energies, accepting them as they are, and applying that force of love to them, right? And accepting the true nature of what's occurred, without guilt, without fear, without shame, right? It could be, many folks would consider it quite shameful, to even admit That's number one, that such a thing is possible. Number two, that they've not only are they capable, they've done it, perhaps not to the degree I have, right? Um, and then, of course, the strength, which I take for granted, but the strength required to even undergo such an experience. So it's now what I'm left with is the most difficult to deal with forms of this stagnated energy is all that's left. And in fact, I'm experiencing a physical sensation this morning that I've never experienced in that area, right? Such as probably, again, via the repression, I probably wasn't able to experience that sensation. And in fact, early on, I didn't even know that I had physical tension in that area of my body because I was never physically relaxed except for probably when I played sports, in a flow state. Yet again, best branding since the situation from Jersey Shore. Another YouTube content creator known as Flow State. And that was my early experiences of meditation, was being in a flow state playing basketball, right? Although not knowing what that was. So then when I learned meditation, I was like, oh, I know what this is. This is the same thing that I used to experience playing basketball at a arguably high level. Well, at a high level. That was not my path, thankfully, to go. I would end up being a coach somewhere. I would have. That's what would have happened most likely. So thankfully, basketball was not in my path as far as make it a job, right? Take something one loves and make it into a job. But back to the pain, right? All aboard the pain train, and I am one of those pain don't hurt type of folks. I am that, certainly. So, and this is where fellas, right? For the fellas, surprise, surprise, who got me into meditation in the first place, right? Via relaxation was ex-wife number two. Because I didn't even know enough back then to get out of my own fucking way. So she wanted to quit smoking, although she loved smoking. She wanted to quit smoking for me, right? And then at times, probably out of guilt of ruining her health with cigarettes, the guilt. And so her friend had loaned her a cassette tape series, basically hypnotize oneself into quitting smoking. And one of the cassettes was, relaxation, one of the sides of one of the cassettes. And she bugged me, man. She would not leave me alone. She just kept harassing me about, you have to listen to this relaxation tape. I know you're going to love it. And I listened to it, and it was like, oh, wow, I'm relaxed, and I've basically never been relaxed in my entire, like, that was what I thought at the time. I was like, I've effectively never been relaxed. And that's, if that says anything to, my stress levels, the earlier forms of Benton, how stressed out they were, right? And how, just the opposite of chill and the opposite of relaxed, calm, and centered and collected, for the most part. Although I do have some skill as an actor, and I certainly had taught myself to mimic, certain aspects of that in order to, achieve specific outcomes in my daily life by that time, right? An actor, performing, but in my own life, a lot of manipulation, of course. I won't get into that here. The assumption that manipulation is always bad is not the case, as far as I can tell. Again, back to all truths are merely half truths. Well, if if it's true that manipulation is inherently bad, well, that's half the story. That I would say at least the potential would be there for, the manipulation of a situation or the manipulation of a medium to turn out in a for a desirable outcome to result. Well, oh, it sounds bad, manipulation. And that's when I became very aware of how tense my shoulders and upper back, were, certainly. And then that began the process of eventually, asking myself in meditation, okay, like I feel all this tension and physical pain and sensation, like, what is this? Just asking the question, like, what is this? And then, having the epiphany, oh, this is basically like the repressed trauma and pain and unresolved emotion of like your early life, right? And pain associated with growing up in a family and all of these things, right? Which is traumatic. There's I would say there's nobody who doesn't experience trauma based on just growing up in a family in this, again, in a realm of death and destruction. And probably part of me learning all of these practices and teaching myself all of this well enough to analyze and verbalize it to you folks. And if there's value to be had in that, and I suspect there is to some extent, to varying degrees, um, it certainly, I find it beneficial. I continue to find benefit, and it is all about me on some level, certainly. Excuse me, pardon me. Stuck in a bunch of truck traffic. I think I've seen a four-wheeler yet. It's all trucks. A little bit of driver skill involved here, not too much, but a little bit. And now I can tell based on what I'm feeling this morning, it's like, yeah, that's the real stuff, man. You thought you dealt with some painful, difficult stuff before. You ain't seen nothing yet, partner. And probably, you know, not incoincidentally, you know, I shouldn't say I don't believe in coincidence, but it makes sense that, as I choose to identify more and more frequently, moment by moment, with what I assert to be my, essence or nature, which is the essence or nature of the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. Well, whatever that would represent spiritually, it seems to make sense to me, would therefore affirm, okay, he's ready for the next, stage of discovering just how painful this is physically, right? Uh, and I would have to assume it's equally painful emotionally, although, I'm not wired for a lot of that experience, meaning I don't, it's difficult for me to even experience whatever the emotion is in the moment. It takes me some time, right? Whereas the physical side of it is right there to be experienced. And then that's the part I've never found that particularly difficult to deal with. Again, back to when I say pain don't hurt, physical pain don't hurt for me. It really doesn't. We'll just use that as an object of focus for meditation. I will use this to dominate something, with my own mental will, right? It's like when I made that dentist of mine earn his money, because I swear at least half these drilling he did in my head back in the day was completely unnecessary because I guess he knew if he dug a hole in my teeth that that was money in the bank for him and his family. So I'm pretty sure a whole lot of unnecessary drilling and filling of cavities went on in my head by this maniac of a dentist. So eventually, for whatever reason, I probably have some circulation issues and always have my whole life probably. And so the Novocaine, I'd be drooling with a puppy face, you know, this feeling of a puppy face for like all fucking day, man. It would take forever for that to wear off. And eventually, by the time the testosterone was kicking in for a few years, finally, I just told the doc, I went in for like my last 3 cavities he ever, by the way, he never drilled in my fucking teeth after this. Now, we did end up moving from there, and that was one of the last times I went to the dentist, but I had three cavities to be filled that day. And I was like, look, man, I'm done with that Novocaine. I can't deal with that Novocaine. And I said, just fucking drill, right? If this tells you anything about what a young Benton was like, I'm basically like drill, baby, drill. And he's like, what do you mean? That's your teeth, partner. I'm like, yeah, drill, baby, drill. Pain don't hurt, motherfucker. And again, we're not talking to each other this way, but this is like the spirit, right, of the thing. And, you know, he's like, well, I got this stuff called carbocaine, right? But it's not you know, it's not near the strength of Novocaine. I'm like, all right, man, let's go for that. But it was basically, you know, it was basically me being it's still no Novocaine, drilling on my teeth with no Novocaine. And as soon as I remember this, I'll never forget this. The moment the drill touched my tooth, a bead of sweat, one single fucking bead of sweat popped out on my forehead. And never, that was it. That was, it's just, that was the extent of the physiological response. And I imposed my motherfucking will on that dude because I believed that he thought, okay, I'll go ahead and agree to this. And this fool is going to, you know, his mouth is writing checks that his ass can't cash. Oh, on the contrary, doc, just like I've proven to my family, at least my parents, by the age of 7, that I will in fact have much stronger will power and mental faculties than either one of you bozos' parents. Certainly way more than my father, who does, my mother being of greater will than my father, I would say, as far as mental strength and strength of will. But no, buddy, you ain't seen nothing yet, partner. And just by the end of it, you know, and I might have been 16. I was driving, yes, was 16. You know, I knew and he knew exactly what had just taken place by the end, because he saved the best for last, and that last one was way deeper than the first 2. But that's also speaks to commitment. Once I made my mind up that this is what's going to happen, I could not. There was a 0% chance of me tapping out. Like, that was not a thing that could happen. You know, and that's the art of war concept of first the warrior places himself beyond the possibility of defeat. Well, I didn't know that I was a warrior, but I was. You know, and this is not to brag. Again, why wouldn't I be proud of that? If that's my true nature expressing from an early age, I will not let this realm of death and destruction instruct me that I'm wrong when I experience pride at expressing my true nature, or what seems to be my true nature. No, I will not. That is the doubling down, by the way. When I named yesterday's stream doubling, I didn't even know what I meant when I talked about double daring this realm of death and destruction. It's also a doubling down because when the realm temporarily gets the best of me through spiritual attack, and when I do begin to identify with, oh, that's right, I'm not supposed to get puffed up with pride, or I'm not supposed to feel pride. Bullshit. Bullshit. I double down. I double dare you, motherfucker, because I cannot be convinced in the long run that I will not be shameful. I will not react with shame and fear around experiencing positive feelings, by the way, positive states of being around I did that. And further, this Christian idea of, well, you don't get credit for that because God did that. Well, okay, what is God? God is love, the most super intelligent force of love possible. If my true nature is that, and that is my essence or nature, if the kingdom of that force is within me, I did do that. Yes, I did, because I am that force. Oh, he's saying he's God. Well, no, I didn't say that. I just said a whole bunch of words, and somebody else thinks they're solving an equation algebraically, and that's what you came up with your math. That math don't math in for me. Right. That's what someone else came up with. That's not Benton's math. Got some truckers don't really know how to drive in these conditions. So the uphill, downhill truck traffic. So bear with me. So temporarily, I internalized, by the way, incorrect philosophy, and my knowing that correct philosophy is the absence of incorrect philosophy, and I do run processes all the time, right? So now there is a lag to that. It's not a perfect practice or perfect processes, but I'm running scripts or programs, to detect incorrect philosophy. That's, yet another of the seemingly endless array of practices, right? And who would even have the energy for all of this? Well, I do, apparently. Apparently, I do. Somebody up here blocking the left lane. Not quite sure what that's all about. Might just have to back off and slow our roll on account of traffic conditions. We'll see if we can bull our way through here. So we're just about the fastest truck as far as our top speed. Super trucker might roll by every once in a while, but for the non-super truckers, we're just about the fastest. 75. They're going to fight us to the death, aren't they? Yeah, they're going to fight us to the death. This realm going to fight you to the death if you think you're going to identify within. Forget about you. Let me apply it to me. If I throw down the gauntlet and say I will, as often as possible, identify with my true nature within myself, this realm going to fight me to the death. And this realm of death and destruction will win in a way. And I would assert that that's a Pyrrhic victory, right? A Pyrrhic victory. And in fact, not a victory at all. But I'll get back to it. Give me just a moment. We got to hammer down and see if we can break away from the pack here. Definitely not going to be able to pass these fellers uphill. Well, maybe we are. Let me see. It's hard to tell. I doubt it, though. I think we're only at about 20,000. So we're like half, less than half, pretty close to half of a full load. Can carry up to right at 45,000 probably, depending on how they load it, how the trailer's loaded with the axle weights and such. And I almost slid my axles. I suspect I could have slid my axles and gotten a little bit better weight distribution for getting up these hills, but we're doing all right. We almost out of it. Give me just a second. Thank you for your patience. Of course, by the time I get to come back to the stream, I won't know what in the world I was doing. I won't recall what I was talking about, or maybe I will. Oh, and that's what I believe is the Bible talking about persecution. Well, if what I am asserting is true, and this is a realm of death and destruction and decadence and depravity and deprivation, you know, and on and on and on and on and on, you know, and the Bible talking about, you know, from God's perspective or the perspective of the most super intelligent force of love possible, then hang on, I kind of lost my train of thought. Too much driving. This is way more driving than I usually encounter at this time of the morning. Must still be nighttime for these guys, I'm guessing, and gals.
Reduce speed. Please reduce speed. Please reduce speed. Reduce speed.
So,
Please reduce speed.
in the context of this spiritual war we've been talking about, where,
Please reduce speed.
you know, you have the thesis or the proposition, which is, you know, love comes to town and says, here I am, and this is my nature, and I express my nature, you know, the I am, you know, the highest levels of vibrational frequency possible. And then the antithesis, right, opposes the validity of the proposition or the thesis. And these are definitions of words, by the way. There's a lot to be gleaned merely from and I don't mean the etymology of the words. I mean the words as commonly accepted to mean right now, we're not going back to now. Yeah, there's use in going back to 1849 or whatever the fuck. Yeah, sure, but that's not what I mean. I mean what the words mean right fucking now. Again, that's the only thing that exists. You know, the now. What does it mean now? Not what did it used to mean. Yeah, I understand it still kind of means what it meant back then, but it also has a different meaning also, right? Both things are able to happen simultaneously. So it seems to me like, regardless, you know, outside of Christianity, the Bible, religion, again, religion's dead. Religion is demonic, right? Religion belongs to this realm of death and destruction. Okay. Everything that is not, this is my opinion effectively, but this is also my knowing within myself. Everything that is not the most super intelligent force of love possible belongs to this place and does not leave this place. Right. That includes religion. You know, the church would have you believe that, you know, the church is going to pass intact into heaven. Well, not if heaven is beyond this place. It's not. The church is dead, partner. We know that tree by the fruit. The religion is dead. It belongs to this realm. Now, this isn't where it would be nice to have the adaptive cruise control, or to at least be able to turn it on, because this might be a case of just set the cruise and cruise. This is way more driving than I should be doing, perhaps. Only way to avoid it would be to slow way the fuck down. I don't think that's going to happen. Can't let a perfectly good 70-mile-an-hour speed limit go to waste. So, how can a realm, it seems to me like there's no other possibility than for, assuming one is willing to go along with what I'm asserting here about the nature of the realm. Again, the potential is there for the realm to express as a heaven realm. And I believe I've exhaustively explained why that's not possible in the near term, or at least within our lifetimes or my lifetime, barring some sort of divine intervention, at least. So it seems to me like the realm and the forces in the context of the spiritual war can't do anything but attack at the level of antithesis, or it would be antithetical to death and destruction and evil's proposition with respect to asserting, well, actually, love is not the greatest force. It's in fact, the antithesis of love. This is an attempt. This realm is manifesting as an attempt on the part of the antithesis of the highest levels of vibrational energy to be able to, at the level of legalese, point to a scoreboard somewhere in the final analysis and say, well, actually, based on what humanity has allowed itself to become, based on how humanity performs and thinks and acts and operates and feels or doesn't feel, and how it treats, those closest to either children or the ones who are most childlike. And if any beings are in a state of spiritual purity, it would have to be what? Babies and maybe, some of the, I don't even want to get into other possibilities, but I think you know what I mean. Innocence and purity, spiritually. And then the antithesis of that, right? Again, back to the Kabbalion and all truths are merely half-truths. Well, that thesis and antithesis. How could it be any other way? So love or God or Lord being thesis, and Satan or evil or accuser or destruction or hate being antithesis. Then having Christ and Antichrist. It's fairly basic and obvious, or at least to me, after many, many years of walking and pondering and practicing, I should say. So certainly very quite conditional and situational. But I am that one, or more correctly, I am this one, right? Because if we, meaning individuals that comprise a mass, are all one at the highest level, then I am this one. And perhaps you are that one, right? Like what is even happening here? What even is this? 33 miles to the fuel stop, 363 to the delivery. How about you? So persecution, it seems to me, is built into the war, meaning if the destroyer or the enemy or the antithesis or Satan or whatever we want to call it is committed fully and cannot be discouraged or dissuaded or convinced to abort the mission, right? Then there's no alternative. There's no other alternative than when I commit to expressing my nature as often as possible in each new moment, I am also accepting that there will be persecution and attacks that come along with it. And that is the Christian concept of persecution. That's what that is. Meanwhile, not a Christian, right? Don't want to be confused for folks who are not persecuted, meaning churchgoers. I don't want to be confused for them, right? Because why would the enemy direct its efforts at persecuting, other than just loosh and to feed on the energy? By the way, the reason why there's no need to attack these the lukewarm churchgoers is because certainly those churchgoers are engaged in many, states of wickedness, uncleanliness, right? All of these demonic forces. And in fact, based on my observations, are infested with demons. That's this idea of, my brother in Christ, or the body of Christ. Oh, you mean all those demonized churchgoers? Is that who you're talking about? Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know how that works, but you mean folks like, again, at the risk of singling somebody out, but, certain, I don't even want to go there because there's no sense in attacking individuals. That doesn't do me any good. But folks who may LARP as if they are individually holier than thou, or again, I am that one. I'm better in each moment that I express my nature. That is to express a superiority over ones who in that moment are not expressing their nature. Guess what? I also, such as when I left the truck stop and momentarily misidentified and expressed and identified with annoyance and the death and destruction of this realm temporarily, in those moments, I'm exhibiting an inferiority to others, right? So yeah, I do not. So the error is not the arrogance. The error is not the pride. The error is to identify with those states, such as to mistakenly not comprehend that, I'm a dynamic human, or more correctly, having a dynamic human experience or series of experiences. Therefore, it ain't possible, right, for me to statically inhabit a state of superiority. So even as I declare a superior intelligence or attainment, or that's not the case. I am in the process of exhibiting what seems to me to be a greater ability to aim at a specific goal in each new moment of expressing my nature or essence in this realm of death and destruction. And each new moment is a pull of the trigger, a new trial where I'm aiming at ringing steel, right? What I'm saying is I'm ringing that steel at a much higher rate than damn near anybody, than almost anybody. Yeah, I'm putting my name on that, because in the putting my name on it, I'm saying, watch what I do. Watch me. Listen for the ringing of the steel with your own powers of observation. Meanwhile, what is that? That's attention. Direct one's attention to me and my performance, which is what? That is in some way judgment, right? They say only God can judge me. Absolutely not. I need to be watching myself to listen metaphorically for the ringing of the steel. I damn sure better be critiquing my performance in the moment. Now, the enemy will try to use that against me. The enemy will say, okay, great. All right, let's do it. And it will say, how about look at all these negative states that can be applied around guilt and shame, and you're not quite, the realm can then try to get me to say, well, you're not quite good enough, are you? Right? You can't quite, hey, that 80, you were at 60%, and that was pretty fucking good. Now maybe 78, right? Well, guess what? The closer I get to 100, the more it seems like I'm failing in a way. The more the times I don't ring the steel. So now let's say I'm at 85 to 90 now. Probably am close to 90. Now that 10% sticks out like a sore fucking thumb. But when that 10% was lost in the 40% because I was only ringing the steel 60% of the time, and that was still a vast improvement over maybe 30%, right? Before that. See what's happening here? The closer I get to 100, and some would say that's not even possible. Bullshit. 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 I reject that out of hand. Who says who? Right. Says who? Because the fact is, as far as I'm concerned, if people want to apply, and people will apply this to all the Christianity and Jesus, and they'll say, oh, well, that's the goal is to be Christ-like, but, and I fall far short of that. Fuck that. That's false humility. That's false humility. If the goal is to be Christ-like, then that's audacious enough on its face to what? To moment by moment say, here I am, and I aim to be as great as that fella supposedly was, according at least to the historical accounts. Where's the humility in that? That's the opposite of humility. To come out here and say, I will express that nature to the greatest extent possible. That's the opposite of humble, partner. That's something that this realm cannot humble. That's something so great and powerful and transcendent and beyond this realm of death and destruction that this realm cannot humble, whatever that is. But the proposition is, oh, yes, I can. So, of course, the recent spiritual attacks have been around, hey, buddy, you're a little too prideful. Oh, is my Leo showing? Is my Leo sun showing a little too much in this moment? Don't mind me, right? Because what's going on inside is a little more of the Virgo detail and analysis. Fire showing a little too much. Because when your girlfriend come and stand close to me and probably wishes I would put my arm around her and maybe cop a feel, I'm retired from all that, but that's that's probably a little bit of that fire showing. See, and again, I got it like that. So what do you want from me? I don't know what to tell you. I can't unlearn that. Meanwhile, all I did was stand there. But everybody has something like that in them. Everybody does. I'm not special, right? But I am. Special, not special. This respond this way to many men. It's not just out here out of their own way. Problem to happen. But the realm would want me to then apply a process of fear, shame, anxiety, and beat my over, daring to, you know, find pride in a job well done or a, proper performance, victory, right? Well, in the context of war, to the victor goes the spoils, right?
Reduce speed.
How you gonna tell me not to enjoy victory? I am that victory, right? Absolutely. So I think just my opinion is the problem for Christianity or churchianity as performed in the realm, the problem is that it doesn't go nearly far enough, in my view, right? It needs to be way more arrogant and way more in your face, not in your face at the level of proselytizing, but in the way in everybody's face at the level of here I am. The most super intelligent force of love possible just showed up on the scene. Sorry about your luck. Deal with it. Because I ain't capable of experiencing all of them negative states that this realm is trying to spiritually attack me into inhabiting. I can't experience that unless I use my creative force to knowingly or unknowingly in a given moment, in a given now, this, exhaustible, but at least for the moment, seemingly inexhaustible, whatever this series of repeated trials are, the now, here it is, there it went, here it is, here it's on its way, it's here, it left, it's on its way, it's here, it left, it's on its way, it's here, it's left, right? Whatever that process is, you know. Well, the only way for me to even experience those negative states that some would say in the soul trap model is the loosh, that these entities or demonic forces, unclean spirits, wicked spirits are feeding upon, if that's a thing, right? And probably it is. I know that it is, but whether that's the proper description or not, right? And again, it's a matter of opinion outside of my internal knowing, at least. Back to the solipsism, but once again, solipsism rears its purportedly ugly head. I'm here to tell you it's not quite as ugly as it's made out to be. Truth, there's certainly truth in there somewhere, in my experience. And what I realize is that when I do express my nature consistently, mind, body, and spirit, that the only error that I ever see express it at in to deal with this that seems to be this way. The tiniest little pangs of guilt and shame that how dare I come out here and behave in ways that some would be able to say, well, he's puffed up with pride. Yeah, damn right I am when I got good reason to be. Yeah, damn right I am. Why wouldn't I be? On the spiritual battlefield, and I'm out here chopping heads, right? And it's gangs of New York, and I'm out there, mercenary style, just you know, kicking ass and taking names. How am I not going to be proud at the end of the battle? Yeah, I can be stoic and I can, but all I know about me is, well, I know a lot about me, but what I know about me is if I feel it, I can't hide it. You're going to know it. If you're around me and I'm feeling strong emotion, you're going to know it. So I can just stand there proud as a fucking peacock and not say a freaking word. And everybody's going to know what's going on inside of me, right? Where my heart on my sleeve. Does it really matter? But again, they, for their own purposes, don't want to hear me and see me strutting around like a rooster and clucking like and one noises, strutting around, puffed up with pride, right? Too fucking bad. Too fucking bad. There's a lot of things I don't want to deal with from them. Guess what? I just put my big boy pants on and deal with it, right? For allowing the realm to temporarily dissuade me from, embodying the greatest of my nature. My nature. My nature. Mine. Because if we're going to break a chunk, right, and have a experience spiritually, that's my contention. And, if it, in the final analysis, I'm only answering for, whatever my level of responsibility, which is probably, directly proportional to my power, whatever my power is in this realm, I'm going to do this damn thing. Again, back to the concept of hot cold, because the lukewarm, gets spat out of the mouth, right? Meaning it's undesirable. Nobody wants to taste whatever that is. But what is society? Society is almost entirely comprised of a lukewarm, if you ask me, other than just, the straight up, just on Front Street about their own, drag queen story hour, showing up dressed like literal fucking demons, Beyond that, just overt, in your face, evil on Front Street, Klaus Schwab or whatever, fucking doing the best, imitation of a Bond villain from a fucking movie, right? That's not my, it's, I'll borrow that from Alex Jones. Bear with me just a moment. We're taking care of the basic needs real quick. Some of them, anyway. Here I come to save the day. Performative humility. It's gross, man. It's disgusting. It really is. And I've done it too, sure, of course. But, and that's what I see a lot of the church going as. Let's go enter into this building and go perform some humility, right? Performatively, Well, or, why not to actually transcend and transform the internal space such that it then more often than not expresses, the nature of these, in the Christian context of this deities or deities, right? That the book would say, the religion would say, the dogma would say, the doctrine would say to worship, right? And I'm pretty sure antithesis gets a lot of mileage in convincing people to worship something that is believed to be outside of them, right? Does that make any sense to anybody? Doesn't make any sense to me. You know, intuitively, that seems wrong. Like my sense of what there's something outside of me out there somewhere, and apparently, you know, these concepts were taught to me, right? And then that thing is to be worshipped. Right? Well, if I'm going to worship, and again, every man hath not the same office, well, why would I, right? Why wouldn't I look inside of my sphere of influence and look and examine my nature first? Is there anything worth worshiping in there? Because this world certainly had me worshiping many aspects of myself from day motherfucking one. Right? Forget about childhood. Let's just go as an 18-year-old up. This world being a sense enjoyment, the pleasures of the flesh. This world, you know, some version of Donkey Island, Pleasure Island, or whatever from Pinocchio. Well, this world had me worshiping all of that within myself, but I can't go in there and find the most super intelligent force of love possible and worship it inside me. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? But as far as antithesis is concerned, evil and the wicked one and the accuser, oh yeah, pretty please with sugar on top, go inside and worship your own, you know, sexuality, whatever. Right. And I mean worship by action, taking the action to seemingly venerate, right, whatever that energy form is, right. So in this context, you know, the Most High would also be an energy form, right. So yeah, go down into the lower chakras and worship all of that, right? Sure, yeah, but do anything but worship, you know, whatever can be found within me that resonates and vibrates at the highest possible level, right? So by the way, the only part of me that existed before this place, and this place can't kill it, and because it can be killed, and it's leaving here. Okay. But worship everything within myself that ain't that. You know, some people worship their depression. Some people worship fear. Some people worship the anxiety. Oh, that's fine, right? That's fine to live that way. And people will, you know, the gnashing of teeth, and people will lament plight. That's a worship, right? By definition, what does worship mean? Do I have to look up word? Right? People treat it as worship. They just don't call it that, right? Worship, again, this is part of the psychological control of the realm. You know, it's not viewed as worship. Well, the word worship still has a definition. It's based on taking real world action. So, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm right on the fucking money here. Pretty sure. You know, some of this, again, it's occurring to me for the first time. Louis T. or Benton, right? So again, antithesis, it's all of the motivations and belief systems, it's like it's reversed or inverted. So, you know, the realm is made so tempting, and the desire that comes along with the human experience, right? Have a good time, enjoy yourself, you know, Fantasy Island or whatever the fuck it was called in Pinocchio. I can't remember, but whatever and they all went and turned into donkeys, metaphorically and literally, you know, in the story. The donkey show, right? So worship all that this world has to offer that, you know, seems to be enjoyable. Really, we're talking about sensation. It's a sensation. But you can't worship, you know, again, the kingdom of God is within me, right? But, and then people will even be like, your body is your temple. Well, I can't go into my own temple and worship the most super intelligent force of love possible within myself. Again, are you crazy? Right? But how did I arrive at these conclusions? It's by not going into the inversion, see, but observing all of these inverted ideas. And then, okay, well, if I'm going thesis versus antithesis, right? Go to the thesis. Express the thesis. Express the proposition. The proposition is God is love. The proposition is the kingdom of God is within me. The proposition is, okay, let me look inside my internal space and put together a puzzle of looky here, look what's inside of me. And psychologically, I've identified with all of these other things that are not me because I am a, experiencing a delusion, right? I am the most super intelligent force of love possible, experiencing via human consciousness a delusion that it's possible to separate bits of that energy and send them here, right? And that would be the matrix or the simulation or simulacrum, if they want to call it, whatever. Doesn't matter. Again, I know that my brain, you know, is decoding this reality via the five senses. Like, I'm aware of that. I know this. And I know, again, back to my faith in the transcendent potential or belief or, you know, the transcendent potential of an individual, this potential to transcend these limitations that I'm describing here, almost everybody has that potential, but it's now we're back to every man hath not the same. It's a different path. It's along a different progression. There's a different purpose, which is why in the conversation that I had with the intelligent, spiritual, you know, man of some spiritual attainment, I was still spiritually attacked in some ways via that conversation. You know, why is that? And I kind of lost my point there, but I'll get back to it. Uh-oh, we're almost to the truck stop. Got 10 miles, so I need to pay attention. Pay attention, Mr. Benton. Again, each new moment, I mean, it is this simple. Each new moment, I affirm love, life, nature, my nature. The how, by the way, you know, I can get into the how, or affirm the validity of death, destruction, evil, depravity, decadence, desire, all of these things, desires of the flesh. There's nothing in between, right? And when all of humanity only ever expresses affirmations of death, destruction, depravity, and decadence, if and when that moment comes, then the antithesis gets to appeal to whatever authority via legalese and say, well, actually, turns out, looks to me, it seems to me like what we thought was antithesis is in fact the proposition itself, and what we thought was the proposition itself, love, the highest levels of vibrational frequency, turns out it's successfully been inverted. Because when love comes to town, love doesn't worry, because love can't worry. Why not? Because love, knowing its own nature, says, well, okay, sure. Antithesis, it's not possible for all of humanity to turn away from its nature simultaneously because that nature would never fail to express. This is the fucking wager. This is the, you know, can tell is thesis and antithesis duking it out metaphorically and saying we will fucking find out who carries the day. This is the spiritual war, right? It's being conducted upon us or through us individually, right? And that is the holy individual experience, right? I'm not on a team of other humans. This is the fundamental misunderstanding. And by the way, this is religion can't be anything but dead because it leads, what religion leads to is fundamental misunderstanding, period. That's the end result. Confusion is the end result of religion, see? Because religion would have the adherent or believer act on a belief system in which all like-minded humans are on a team fighting evil. Absolutely not. Because the kingdom is within me. The fight is within me. My only power is within me. Or more correctly, my sphere of influence. That's where the war is. So it's all of these little trials. Okay, let's have this realm of delusion in which seemingly this human consciousness is seemingly breaking off these pieces of thesis or proposition or highest levels of vibrational frequency. The proposition being that's the greatest, that's the greatest, most powerful force possible at the highest level, and there are no other possibilities. Okay, well, the human consciousness experiencing the delusion or awareness, right? So the realm is the realm of delusion that I'm in fact a discrete being, right? That's not the case. Again, I'm speaking this as an opinion or I'm guessing, but I know this to be true within myself. I know it. This is part of knowing, right? Which they say is half the battle. Okay. I know this to be true within myself. So what's there to worry about? No matter what happens, my essence is right now with the larger whole, right? It's never actually separated. See? So antithesis would be to create that separation, would it not? Isn't that the antithesis? Oh, this indivisible force. Well, antithesis would say, well, actually, watch me divide it. That's what this is. That's what it is to be a human with this psychology, right? This ability to be consciously aware or not consciously aware or consciously unaware. As isn't that what an NPC is? A person who's so unaware, right? Guess who used to meet that description, by the way? Mr. Benson here. Although intuitively, I always knew certain things, but it did not have the grasp of the concepts intellectually for a very long time. See, I was normie as fuck for a long time, but always a little bit weird and bizarre. It's funny how when a person is still experiencing actual youth, right, and somewhat attractive, how the weirdness is just kind of neither here nor there. The older I get, the more it seems to stand out. The less and less tolerant are of it. But whatever, doesn't matter. It don't make no matter. Some of my people might say. I'll So what many of the young people falling into the opposite of via language and positively as possible, which is just as bad. Well, no, it's just as erroneous. It's just as unbalanced as the culture in which it's valid. By the way, of course, the validity would be in the balance. As I almost missed my exit, but fortunately I don't. There's the oasis of the Love's truck stop up ahead. And can we resist more coffee? I think we can, but I think we're going to do it by having more chocolate. Bear with me. Chocolate. I think one more dose of theobromine and caffeine. What little bit of caffeine's in this dark chocolate anyway? Not a lot, but you know, it's got some more. It's got like 3 times more theobromine, you know, or whatever that is. However you say that. Than the other, the layout. All right, we made it. All right, I shall return in a moment. Bears. Bam. All right, we back. Be made, and it'll be still be below 20 fucking 9 degrees. Well, actually colder than that. That's what the truck is on the dash. Wherever that sensor is. Oh, wait a minute. I can go through the get one. Oh, triple. 5 points. So that's a month. That's all right. Back on the road. Half a mind to do a U-turn and while scared the wrong way. Now I'm driving into the parking lot. Yep. Oh, he's there unless he's leaving. Yeah, I think he's leaving. As I say, if he's back in, he's pretty much. Is that the way out of here? Or are they going to get fuel? I'm not sure that's the way there, but yeah, fuel island. Get me out. Oh shit, I didn't went the wrong way. Oh, should have followed them. They must have been here before. It's where my retardation goes, by the way. At times. Oh well, I guess I just wanted to tour them. Rinse the old mouth out real quick. Mhm. So back to what I think I was talking about earlier. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Hang on, let me make sure I'm on the. Yeah, we're good. Um, hold on, hold on. It'll take me 10 minutes to get out of here. This poor fella in front of me is doing something in the truck, maybe. I'm up to 3 minutes of driving. I'm still in. I'm not even on the road yet. Come on, man. Oh, what the hell? Why is his trailer? His trailer, when he applies his brakes, it does a flashing uh, amber light in the middle of the trailer. That's bullshit. That's just blinding. How is that allowed? Bullshit. And this road is fucked. Oh hell! I put my. I just realized I put my fork. Okay, never mind. Never mind. But I did. To the deliver. Damn. No merge area. Effectively, no merge area and a guardrail, and then trucks trying to pass each other. That was a interesting situation. They figured it out though and made enough room for old Benton. Thanks, fellers. Much obliged. Make sure we're going the right way. Hang on. Take a look at the old route. Yeah, we're going. Unfortunately, we're going through like Cleveland and all of that. Youngstown. Not that I dislike that area, but it's the way we're going. Almost in Ohio, I expect. Another 50 miles, maybe. Punxsutawney, exit 78. There you go. Blame Punxsutawney Phil for the 28 degrees. It's his fault. So back to what I was saying before we were interrupted by the fuel stop. You know, my belief in that potential for individuals, again, and back to the idea of, religion, seeming to, people seemingly believe, okay, well, we're on team, whatever denomination, Christian church, and, that's the mechanism whereby, we are absolved in salvation and, more or less some version of the church, after this gets transferred, after this world is destroyed, passes more or less intact into heaven. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way. But then also the idea of, faced with the reality of existing in a realm of death and destruction, a hell realm, with the potential to express, perhaps something that would be akin to heaven. And then is humanity collectively even capable of that? Well, it sure doesn't seem that way. Maybe at one time it was, I don't know, but then the people who push back on me and don't want to face the hell realm reality and then attack the messenger and appear to make, try to make me appear foolish. It's like, okay, but, I'm individuals who and to do the right. I don't even see that happening. Now, I understand that many individuals are unwilling to accept that, in fact, their creative force has been subverted, and knowingly or unknowingly, more often than not, their own actions, thoughts and actions are serving death and destruction, serving this realm, right? Honoring this realm, you know, engaged in the business of this realm, right? The business of this realm is death and destruction. The business of this realm, and then when we look at money, right, and corporation, and then how many of the word game truthers want to say, well, you get into incorporeal and ideas about dead bodies and all of this, right? Corporate, going back to the etymology, and I don't even need to take it to that level. It's like, yeah, this is the realm of death and destruction. Of course, some of the most powerful entities in this realm, how could they not be something like Amazon or Walmart or whatever, Meta, Alphabet, Google, YouTube, you know, how could it be any other way, right? So to me, that exposes the LARP, the LARP of, well, actually, Benton, we're having a great old time. Everything's wonderful. Like, what's wrong with still without much greater frequency of expressing my true essence or nature that I know to be one with the most super intelligent force of love possible? Every day for me is better than the last. True statement. Or more correctly, less hellish, right? Which is kind of the same experience. To me, it seems like it's the head in the sand people who want to make it seem like, well, actually, Benton, things are not that bad, and you're choosing to have a bad time. Why? Because I'm observing and reporting. That's me choosing to have a bad time, because I seem to be doing all right overall, as far as I can tell, at least lately. Definitely in the last week to 10 days, however long it's been, as we have to slow down because of some creepy truckers become fascinated with watching me in my mirror. There's a lot of creepy truckers, I can tell you that. Let them get on down the road. But it's flat ground. There's no real reason for them to just be right there in my mirror. Anyway, and man, this world's so wicked. Man, I get out of the truck sometimes at the truck stop yesterday, and male truck drivers breaking their fucking neck to get a look at old. I'm like, what is this? This is fucking wicked, man. Looking at me like I'm on the menu, It's like, good God. So again, this realm is set up to have the person unknowingly worshiping, the low level, decadent, depraved aspects of their own internal space. Yeah, worship that, but don't dare to. And then worship God outside of yourself, right? Well, or how about the kingdom of God is within me, and I just go ahead and go within and worship whatever's worthy of worship, while staunchly refusing to uh, continue to identify with the lower levels of desire, right? That would cause a fella to break his neck to check out another fella at a truck stop. It's like, what? I'm just watching this happen, and I'm like, this is really who we are as a people. And this is why I buck so much when people want to go, we this and we that. Well, we just have to do this and we just have to do that. I'm like, I'm not in that group. What are you talking about? I'm not a part of that. What I am does not participate in that. And if I, in this moment, am unknown, if I've fallen into error so much so that I'm identified with that group, or I can plausibly be placed into that group, I done fucked up. That means it must have been a month of identifying with this world instead of identifying, again, externally, instead of identifying properly within myself, right? Or identifying with depression, identifying with anxiety, and it's within me if I incorrectly identify. Now, it doesn't. It's not. Again, my nature can't create fear and anxiety, right? My essence is incapable of generating those states. But part of the delusion of this experience is to be able to experience that. See, so we've taken. Seemingly, this is the delusion, is to take a portion, to seemingly cordon off a small aspect of the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, and then encase it and entrap it, and which is not even possible. But again, this is the delusion, right? This is an illusory, delusory state, if that's a correct word, and I believe it is delusory. Look it up. I'm not able to. And now I'm existing in part in a delusion, except as I, identify with my true nature and via, again, my creative force that never lies dormant. What am I birthing into the realm from moment to moment? Meanwhile, what does the other individuals who might comprise a particular we, their preference is that I would join them in the mass delusion that will actually, yeah, it's gonna get bad and the economy's gonna crash, and but right now it's not that bad because the Amazon products, the Amazon order still shows up, and the money still kind of spins, right, and the belly is still full, to some extent, right? So yeah, well, guess what? It's always not that bad on those levels because, as we see, it's the trend is downward, not upward, with respect to what the day-to-day lives of Americans, of common Americans. And then what do humans do? Humans do what humans do, which is adapt to their environment expertly, seamlessly, efficient, seamless, almost effortless adaptation to environment or the present circumstances. And that's why the moment of revolution can never arrive, is because in each new moment, it's never crosses over from tolerable to intolerable, because the organism adapts to the new moment, which is then can be just slightly degraded or worse than before, or in the views of the toxic positivity crowd, just not quite as good. So the implication is, well, yeah, things are good, right? Well, that's nothing more than a person who's chosen a point of view. Yeah, if the individual has chosen to view the realm as good, so what is the financial crisis? What is the collapse? What are the egg prices? Well, now things are getting bad. What does getting bad mean? It means, well, we can foresee a moment in the future when it could potentially cross over from good to bad. Meanwhile, if it's still good, there's no reason to revolt. But the assumption is the moment it crosses from good to bad, revolution happens. Bullshit. Bullshit. Individuals collectively at the level of the shared delusion are choosing, or more correctly, have deluded themselves And in fact, this is to serve the system. This is the thought of the system, right? This is the psychology of the system is, well, the human expertly adapts to its environment and then all simultaneously will only view the present circumstances as desirable or good while acknowledging, well, it ain't as good as it used to be. It's still good. But then on the horizon is complete catastrophe and cataclysm and apocalypse. But that's the fact that it's seemingly out there and maybe approaching, that also confers that, well, maybe something or someone will intervene on our behalf, whether it's God himself, right, in the Christian sense, or the return of Jesus, or Donald Trump, right, is going to come rescue us from the impending catastrophe, right? And all I'm doing is observing that, well, no, it's already a catastrophe. It's already death. It's already destruction. It's already bad. It's already a financial crisis. It's already the collapse of the economy, right? No, it's already Mad Max. It's already lawlessness. It's already the same exact intractable social problems that existed when I passed through my mother in 1975. It's all the exact same problems. So what are you talking about? Huh? I thought Christianity was the idea that God was good and the fucking this realm was bad. Isn't that in some way a proper summation of what Christianity has purported to be in the past? That this is the realm, this is a wicked realm, but that God is good, right? But this is a terrible place, but God is good, and God is good, right? But now all of a sudden things are, the realm is mostly good, but then whatever one finds that's bad, we'll just go ahead and blame God for that, right? Well, that's God's fault that it's not a perfect paradise, but things are still pretty good. That sounds like the words of someone who is not yet figured out that on a daily basis that individual is most likely engaged in a seemingly never-ending series of sense enjoyment and enjoying themselves at the levels of the desires of this realm. So, I won't get into details, but I can just picture what I used to be up to, right, in my younger days. What was I running around doing, right? You know, what was old Benton up to? No good, mostly. You know the tree by the fruit. So what I see, and this is my divergence from most of the individuals that I have interacted with, especially in these so-called truth communities, is um, I flat refuse to go along with these notions of seeing anything positive in society, in the goings on of society. Tell me something positive, and I will tell you exactly why it's not. But then, oh, that's Benton's a doomer, and Benton's this, and Benton's a that. Well, I'm here observing and reporting, and refusing to go along with the mass delusion, and which is another form of social contract, seemingly. And by the way, having the audacity to go, well, what's in it for me other than pain, misery, struggle, and strife? Now, if one can appeal to me at the level of what's in it for me to also go along with these delusions at the level of a mass delusion, social contract, get along, go along to get along. Okay, what's in it for me? What do I get? Oh, well, now you're being selfish. Oh, am I? I thought that was the order of the day. Like, huh? But do you see, it's the constant killing of the messenger and the constant, you know, let's try to make Benton a victim so we can blame him, right? Let's at least try to insinuate that Benton is somehow a victim of his own what? Doomerism, right? Well, the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level is not capable of doom. It can't be doomed. It can't be cursed. It cannot curse. It can neither curse nor be cursed. It can only bless and be blessed. See? Among other things, but in that context. In that context. I think it's about time for some apricots. Getting hungry. I might wait a minute, though. Got a jar of apricots. What a blessing. What a blessing. Now we're in never-ending construction zones. There was no work being done. Gotta love that. I see no work happening, but it's just a never-ending series of construction signs. Pass old hot shot here.
Reduce speed. Reduce speed.
So on the one hand, you know, it's a, you know, why are you pointing out this foolishness, Benton? And it's like, well, in part because I don't want to be confused for the foolishness I see y'all performing, and I don't mean you, the listener, right? I don't want to get caught up in that confusion or you know, misidentified as one of those fools, right? And also, you know, if I'm properly identified, I'm not able to punish individuals for their own, you know, rebellious refusal to do what? To transform themselves, to undergo, to submit themselves spiritually, to surrender spiritually, to undergoing the process of change within themselves that I view and I know to be necessary in order to create a heaven or hell realm. So if you're going to tell me be the change you want to see in the world, all I'm going to say is, oh yeah, doing that now, been doing that for 15 plus years. And furthermore, why don't I see anybody else doing that? How come, as far as I can detect, I'm effectively the only one doing that? Oh, but it's a slogan, and you know, it's a meme. You know, we put it on our Facebook wall or whatever. I'm not on Facebook, whatever the fuck. You know, maybe we framed it on the wall, right? Well, how about live it if it's so important, right? If it's so, you know, the idea of be the change I want to see in the world. Okay. Number one, how? Well, I've identified the how, right? Well, if we put next to that slogan that feels good, what if we put the how? Well, the how don't feel good. See, and that's where it's just simply not possible for an individual to get to a space within themselves where they can even do their part in the creation of a heaven realm. And it's because they are continuing to operate based on the system psychology. Simply not possible for the being to within themselves achieve what would need to be achieved spiritually and on other mind, body, and spirit. It's not possible while operating within the psychological constraints of this psychology that was designed, created, and installed by the system for the system to serve the system. Simply impossible. So what is possible is, well, we can't do that, but we can kill the messenger. Here comes Benton speaking the truth in fearlessness. Well, let's just metaphorically beat him to death about the head and shoulder, which is what? Spiritual attack and persecution against old Benton. Well, I'm no count. That's what we call it where I'm from. I'm no count, meaning I have no account in this realm. I don't have an account in this realm of death and destruction. From the perspective of this realm, I'm, quote, no account. I'm of no reputation in this realm. None whatsoever. Based on what this realm honors. Right? The Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. I'm not from here. I don't belong here. I'll never fit in here fully. Ever. Thank you. Praise Almighty God in the mighty name of Christ Jesus. Jesus Christ is Lord. Whatever in the fuck all that is, by the way. Whatever in the fuck all of what I just referred to even is. And if somebody says blasphemy, I say, well, thankfully for you, my salvation is not yours and vice versa, so you're not going to be called to answer for it, so what do you care? Well, and I don't believe that you do care. It's your own fear that I might be blaspheming and it might be contagious. That's your fear, Christian. Proper knowledge, proper application of proper knowledge would be to understand, well, that's Benton's salvation is not mine and vice versa. So if he wants to do all of this and we view it as blaspheming, then who cares? Oh, but the LARP is that they love me so much they don't want to see me destroyed. Well, I'm observing the person who would treat me that way. I'm observing them in a state of death and destruction, refusing to salvage what is salvageable in the now, while projecting onto me things that don't apply to me out of their own rebellious refusal to get their own shit together by putting what? Their own house in order. Meanwhile, I'm not out here bemoaning the fact that people are not putting their own house in order. I'm merely observing and reporting for my own selfish purposes, by the way. How about that? I've transcended the selfishness. Or more correctly, what I am is the transcendence of states such as selfishness. Right? That is my nature, is the transcendence of that. See how it works? Proper identification. Proper identification. Well, the apricots are calling, and I guess I've ran my yap on here long enough. Appreciate y'all listening. 13 in the house, though. I've yurted the stream. I don't know. I could probably deal with my physical hunger for another 15 to 20. And, you know, the fact is, I understand mathematically, you know, I don't really benefit from another individual, you know, taking ownership of what they're able to take ownership of and then transcending. As a human slows their vehicle down on the interstate simply based on me slowing down. But I'm only slowing down because I'm a gigantic heavy truck going downhill. And I'm then slowing down more to get them to go around me. But They're slowing down because I'm slowing down, because this is the realm where virtually all humans watch the other humans and just do whatever the other humans do, whatever that is. So if most of these humans wake up tomorrow and their fellow humans start tattooing penises onto their foreheads, pretty soon that's what they will be doing. They will be tattooing penises onto their own foreheads. That's what most humans are engaged in. Most, right? Most humans are just watching the other humans and doing whatever the other humans are doing. You know. But I'm supposed to believe, I'm supposed to operate as if these are fully capable human beings who have risen to such a high level of sophistication and attainment that once they correct and wake up to the fact that they, meaning the controllers of this realm, have somehow duped and tricked them, right, into unknowingly serving the wicked evil system. Well, of course, snap your fingers. The moment these individuals, quote, wake up, of course they'll snap to and just immediately start behaving correctly. How could they not? Well, because they are not capable of snapping to and doing right. That's why. Because they're in such a low level of development, mind, body, and spirit, they don't have those capacities. That's why. So even if waking up was a thing, and I can tell you why it's not, these are not the people who are capable of reforming dystopia. Even if I'm willing to go along with the notion that, well, the moment they realize that they've been duped and now all they have to do is communicate with their fellow humans and have a confab and a coming together and a kumbaya, and now we're all going to do the right thing because of course we're all mostly good humans who will do the right thing. Of course that's what we are. Oh, really? How do you know that? I want to know how you know. Oh, you're assuming that. Why are you assuming? Oh, who benefits from that belief? Oh, the system benefits from that belief. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Very interesting. You'll forgive me for choosing to accept the reality that most humans are wicked and evil and as decadent as more decadent and depraved and vile and wretched than most of us could even imagine. That's your average human these days. Yeah, your average human. But the social contract is, let's all put our heads in the sand and refuse to examine our own internal space, because deep down we all kind of fear that that's probably what's in us, right? Isn't that kind of the fear, that deep down that if I do look a little too closely into what's inside, I might in fact discover that it is that wicked, that it is that decadent, it is that disconnected from God and creation and love and my own true nature. And boy, how would it feel to face that reality, right? And by the way, marketing and advertising won't let you face it anyway. This realm can't continue to market to you, and everything in America is a business. Well, the realm cannot effectively market to you if you're willing to go within yourself and discover just how lowly and wretched and decadent and depraved your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions may in fact be. Yours, the listener. Yes, you. And how do I know that? Because I've examined my internal space. And I also used to just take for granted, well, I have to be a good person because I have good intentions. How could I not? How could I not be a good person? And just affirm all the reasons, well, I've done this, that, and the third, right? And just ignore the harm, ignore the folly, right? Ignore the decadence, ignore the depravity, ignore the lust, right? Sure, as long as I'm willing to pretend none of that is real, and none of that exists, and I did not in fact do any of that. Well, guess what? This version of Benton didn't do any of that. That's what it means to be born again, Christians. That's what it means to be forgiven or absolved, is that version is dead. That version who did all of that wickedness and evil, guess what? That was the versions or versions that were identified with this realm of death and destruction. The reborn Benton, the quote saved Benton, is the Benton that more often than not in each new moment is identified with Benton's true nature, thus creating, right, a new man and allowing the old man to die. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That was the Benton of this world, see, or Bentons. See, the real Benton is not capable of being of this world. Again, the Bible idea of be in this world, not of this world. My essence can't be of this world. This world, this is the realm of death and destruction. My essence is not capable of identifying with this realm of death and destruction. But the delusion of being an individual, of to seemingly being an individual human, right? The delusion partially is to be able to allow the creative force that never lies dormant to knowingly or unknowingly, temporarily, or for many, or if not most folks, to de facto always identify with this realm and to serve this realm, right? That's death. That's to be dead, right? Well, what I say is let the dead bury the dead. Let this realm bury that. Let this realm bury those earlier versions of Benton. Now, what gives life to those versions of Benton is Benton's own what? Ego and narcissism and psychology. Because what is narcissism? On one level, narcissism is it's the existential crisis, and it's to feel and behave as if, well, if nobody is willing to worship my own image of myself, and if nobody is willing to give me attention, give me attention, give me attention, right? This false version of Benton, the Benton of the version of Benton that identifies only via the lens of what this realm honors, right? That dead version of Benton. Well, so narcissism is to experience all of this in a way in which if I am not able to, if I'm not able to moment by moment get other people to sign off on how great and wonderful Benton is. This is the plight of Talcott, by the way, Jack Talcott. If I'm not able to achieve, and my father, if I'm not able to achieve that in a given moment, the narcissist anyway, not me, but the narcissist, then the emotional makeup of the narcissist, it seems to them as if they have literal terror at the level of, well, in fact, maybe the narcissist doesn't exist. Well, guess what, narcissist? That version of you doesn't, in fact, exist because it belongs to this realm of death and destruction, as does everything that is not consistent with the nature of the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. This is true knowledge. This is true intelligence that I'm speaking on, by the way. And what is it? It's knowledge of self. That's what this is. This is now the performance of self-realization. Why wouldn't I be proud of being able to perform something that I haven't seen any of you perform? And I would love to see it. Please do. Please do. Please do begin to perform that. I'll patiently wait. Probably we won't live long enough. We might. We might. The slings and arrows and spiritual attacks are going to continue to come. I'm ready for them. Do your worst, antithesis. I'm the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. Do your worst, because everything about me that the antithesis is able to attack ain't me in the first place, partner. Bring it, bitch. Bring it, bitch. I'm riding roughshod over the antithesis because I am that one. I am the thesis. How about you? What you gonna tell me? Can't tell me nothing. Oh well, he's being arrogant and prideful again. I sure hope he is. He's damn sure got reason to be. It ain't bragging if you can back it up where I'm from. I don't know what to tell you. Scoreboard, motherfucker. Why shouldn't the enemy have their noses rubbed in it a little bit? Why shouldn't everything that's identified with the enemy have its noses rubbed in it? So anybody hearing my voice that's improperly identified within themselves, I would argue is earning that if they're having their nose rubbed in it. They're earning that. I got a trucker buried up my ass. Hey truck, you can ride my ass, but we're gonna do it slow down the hills. We're gonna do it slow on the flat ground, and we're gonna do it slow up the hills. He thought just because I was going fast on the flat and fast down the hills that he would bury his bobtail up the ass end of my trailer. That's okay. You can do that, buddy. But you're gonna do it at 65 or slower. Now he's trying to save face and pretend like he was driving slow. No, I was going 75 with you right up my ass, sir. Don't try to act like you was just gonna go slow anyway. Bullshit. He's probably taking this exit though. And the fact is, the humans I observe simply will not own their own behavior. Is it possible to momentarily have them bring them, convince them to enter into a space where they're able to observe themselves in their own folly? Sure, but they won't own it. They will always seek to excuse it and give all the reasons why, well, it's not their fault. Again, an externalization. And until the being even learns, until the being has a grasp and comprehension of when to internalize versus when to externalize, that person's lost, right? That's a lost individual that can't practice. So what I see are the individuals in the realm. Most of them are at such a low level of development, they have no chance. It's a bridge too motherfucking far, right? The fact that I have, am performing, and I am attaining and grasping these, what by comparison may seem to be fairly lofty states, so what, right? So what? It's not a great credit to me to be able to easily outpace the spiritual development and attainment of the average bozo. And most of you average bozos, I hate to break it to you, most of you average bozos, yeah, you got good taste to some extent. You have some form of curiosity intellectually, some form of neuroplasticity, other than the ones listening to the sound of my voice and find this amusing on some level. Some of you set up for intellectual discourse and deep thought, but most of you bozos, whatever. That's fine. But, you know, uh, few, if any, are ever going to just say, well, fuck it. If old Benton can do it, I'm going to do it. And my way will not be his way. And full commitment, full send, I'm going to do the damn thing. By the way, I don't give a fuck if you do or not. It doesn't help me in the slightest. Now, it would be nice. Part of me fantasizes it would be nice if an initiate or a newbie practitioner just showed up one day and was like, "Hey, teacher, how about you teach me to do what you're doing?" Yeah, it would probably be a fucking pain in the ass, honestly. But yeah, part of me. Yeah, is there part of me that would enjoy being useful in that way? Sure. Ultimately, I don't need that. I don't need that. I would do it, I guess, under the right circumstances, such as, Eastern, Buddhist or Hindu or whatever, but probably Buddhist would say, the person who wants to begin to spiritually practice, right? One of these, somebody seeking to be initiated into a practice or practices. Well, in typical human fashion, they don't want to go that alone. Meanwhile, it can only be done alone, by the way, but says, okay, and then culturally, that part of the world seems set up to this master student, arrangement, mentor, whatever, culturally. And so the young initiate goes out and finds someone who's a master, but a master, not in reputation necessarily, someone who's practicing the thing, right? That the initiate wants to get to that place. So the initiate looks around and finds a person who seemingly is practicing the things that the initiate wants to learn how to practice. And then says, "Hey man, how are you today?" There's a conversation, and then it's like, how about, I be your student and you teach me how to practice like you practice. And then in the story, it is probably some Zen Buddhist parable or whatever. And then, basically the person who would be master says, "Okay, yeah, great. Come with me. We're living underneath the bridge begging for our dinner," right? In the clothing of a beggar, right? And that may be the way that the teacher is living, number one. And I am living a version of that, even though at this time I have, literal thousands of dollars in my account, right? It's only two, but it's still literally thousands when, I was picking. Now that's part of my experience as a human. Wasn't that long ago, I was picking up nickels and dimes out of the trash in Los Angeles and dragging them in the form of cans and bottles to the recycler, right? In exchange for up to $30 at a time, sleeping in a car, and begging on the internet, right? So if I was identified, and this is probably some version of a fantasy, but then it would be, okay, well, we're sleeping in a car, except I don't even have a car for you, so I guess you're sleeping. So the master says, "Okay, come with me. You're sleeping in that car. You might want to find you some air freshener, because I've been sleeping in the car for the last 6 months." And then the student is, "Well, where do you sleep?" "Well, never mind that, but guess what? We wake up about 1:30 a.m. So you probably ought to figure out how to go to sleep in about the next 30 minutes, because I'll be here at about 1 a.m. to wake you up, buddy. Because we also wake up quite early, And part of that is that then tests the resolve of the student. Is the student committed, right? Because I'm not able to teach. If I'm even able to teach, and this is what I've learned about me, I can't teach any student who's below the level of full commitment. Meaning I've only ever instructed a student who exhibits 100% commitment, meaning I've only ever taught myself when I've been fully committed. In the times in which I'm not fully committed, I'm not able to, that's not a student I can teach. And if I don't have direct access to the internal space of the student, right? So prior to this, my only student has been me. And that's only been within me, right? So if now I'm going to go ahead and level up and attempt to instruct someone who I don't have direct access to, meaning I don't have direct access to their internal space, well, they're going to have to exhibit full adherence and commitment, full sin, meaning you just do what I do, and I don't want to hear a fucking word about it, right? Oh, well, the part where they are like, man, I really don't want to go collect cans and bottles right now. And it's like, okay, guess what? I also, part of me did not want to go and collect cans and bottles, but I disciplined it and told it to shut the fuck up and collect the cans and bottles, right? The desire to not, okay, more correctly, whatever is within the being that says, I don't want to go pick up cans and bottles right now, which is just the part of the being that says, I don't want to spiritually practice right now. I want to go play my game. I want to go to the mall when that was a thing. That's the things of the child. Like, that's to have a childish preference, right? Who cares? Yeah, I also have things I'd rather be doing. Except what's more important than this, if I can creditably claim, well, in fact, if I want to practice, or more correctly, if correct philosophy is the absence of incorrect philosophy, and correct philosophy is to be the change I think I want to see in the world, well, guess what? I'm here to tell you that's only achievable within you, and you're never going to get there by worrying your pretty little head, your precious little head, about your stupid fucking preferences. Who cares? I have preferences also. Guess what? They're only important to me. Nobody else gives a fuck that you want to play your game or whatever you want to do. Who cares? Do you think the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level is even capable of giving a flying fuck about your preferences? I'm here to tell you it can't. It cannot concern itself with that. Now, it can view your plight and say, there, silly little human. Here's some compassion and empathy, but never sympathy or pity, right? The most super intelligent force of love possible can't pity you. By the way, when I say, I don't want to go pick the cans and bottles out of the trash, I want to play my game, that's to seek that I would identify with you identifying within yourself as something that's deserving of pity. Fuck you. Fuck that. I refuse. Because that's weak. That's some weak ass, pussy ass bullshit. What is it's within me is far greater than whatever that is. That's pathetic. Get that weak ass bullshit, pathetic ass nonsense the fuck out of here. Partner. You think you're gonna walk this walk? Well, part of the walking this walk is there's an iron fist somewhere, and that iron fist rules. That iron fist rules me in a way, but it's my iron fist. Because if I recognize as a human, there's part of me that not only can be ruled with an iron fist, there's part of me that kind of likes it. There's part of me that kind of likes it. Well, sure, better make sure and develop the part of me that's capable of ruling with an iron fist. Because if I don't rule me with an iron fist, probably something within the realm will rule me with an iron fist. And will get its own jollies off by ruling me with an iron fist. That sounds sick and depraved. That seems creepy. So I better take ownership of the part of me that might respond to being run roughshod upon, that might respond to being to being flagellated, beaten. Well, I better beat myself. If part of me kind of likes the beating, I better identify with I better take full ownership of whatever's doing the beating, right? Best be me. Better me than anything else, right? Because now what do we have? Power, control, see, ownership. By what? By partially recognizing, wow, there's really part of me that, number one, would respond to kicking the shit out of myself or having something else kick the shit out of me. And further, I kind of enjoy the process of control. I kind of liked it when very attractive and feminine and submissive ex-wife number two just let me fucking control her. But then, by the way, part of that was she wanted someone to take ownership of her, so she didn't ever have to actually fully grow up. See, her preference was to, be able to remain, something of a not a fully grown adult. Oh, okay. Here's Benton. He's foolish enough to break off about 25% of his mental acumen and run my affairs. Okay, sounds good to me. But I didn't know that's what was happening. See, and I'm here to tell you, probably everybody listening has their own versions of all of these mechanisms. It's just the discrete makeup of the being is different. So I only know me in this regard. I have suspicions about you, but I'll never fully know. And again, back to the solipsism, I can't fully know you. Now I can only fully know me if I'm really, really willing to, direct my efforts at getting to know me. You know, a life unexamined, right? Or more correctly, what about a life examined? Well, Benson, you're overthinking. No, I'm not overthinking. There's no such thing. I'm observing my life. I'm examining me and my life to the nth motherfucking degree. Fuck your overthinking. Fuck your overthinking. It's not a thing. I'm here to experience the full gamut of this human experience, and I've now transcended the lower forms, right? We've transcended all of that, meaning no longer limited by the desires of the lower chakras, right? While looking out and making sure they don't make a comeback. And they would say, don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years. Well, okay. Play on, playa. Game recognized game. However, that can only happen when I identify with those energy centers, which is what a chakra is. Only by choosing to identify with those desires, the desires of those lower, meaning lower levels of vibrational energy, only by choosing to identify with them can that occur. I've transcended that. Yeah, I'm no longer a slave to those desires. I still experience them. They're still there. So what? So fucking what? And I won't get graphic, but we can all use our imaginations. Well, that Benton's dead. Those Bentons have died. The only way for those Bentons is if I resurrect them via my creative force by engaging in thoughts and actions and incorrect identification such that I resurrect the old dead Bentons. Not going to happen. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. But my favorite part of this experience, one of my favorite parts is I can't do none of this for anybody but me. I have zero ability to practice any of this in anybody's life but mine. Can't do anything for you. Now, can I observe you and use deductive reasoning and intelligence and all of this to make guesses and use my own experiences and my own wisdom and all of it. Yeah, of course. To do what? To give you logic that you're capable of getting to yourself. You don't need me for logic, but it's like a shortcut or a resource, right? Hey, man, well, uh, this is where I'm at in my practice, and this is happening over the same challenge is cropping up over and over again, and I'll probably be like, oh yeah, I used to run into that. Here's how I overcame it. And as soon as I overcame it, the challenge stopped presenting itself because now I've proven that I have transcended those limitations, that I'm no longer tested on that basis. Probably that will work for you also, or at least you will have the understanding of what exact error, logical error, is leading to what incorrect action or thought, right, is leading to this obstacle. So, once I tell you, it's going to be fairly obvious. Just knock it the fuck off. It's almost invariably the being is doing something incorrect, not understanding the incorrectness of it, or not being able to overcome the social pressure. So part of that is me just saying, hey, yeah, I understand that there's going to be peer pressure and your peer group may not accept you. Okay, so now your choice is to hear what the peer group wants from you or to honor what you know to be your own purpose here. Pick one, because you can't do both. You can't make the peer group happy. Well, guess what? You can't do that anyway. But you're not entitled to the approval of your peer group while simultaneously living what you know to be, or what you may very well discover to be, your purpose. This realm never promised you both. And part of the delusion of this realm, part of the psychology of this realm, is the idea that that you can have it all, meaning you can have the approval of this realm, you can have the approval of your family, you can have the approval of your peer groups, and simultaneously fully embody whatever in the hell you was sent here to embody. No, absolutely not. Not only are you not entitled to that, you probably believe you are. You might feel like you should be entitled to that because, if you go out here and do what maybe you're supposed to do, at least in the eyes of the most super intelligent force of love possible, well, of course you would be rewarded for that. Oh, you think the realm of death and destruction is going to reward you within the realm of within the realm of death and destruction for refusing to affirm and honor at the level of your own creative force whatever serves the realm of death and destruction in any given moment? Are you crazy? Yeah, you are crazy because the general public is de facto insane. That's you, partner, to some extent, until you let the parts of you that are misidentified with death and destruction, aka this realm, let the dead realm bury that version of you. If you got the balls, if you got the guts, if you got the courage. I do. I've always had it like that. Guess what? If you don't have it like that, you're going to have to build a version of you that can do that. Or fuck off into failure, into spiritual defeat, into vanquishment, into the opposite of victory. Well, I'm here to tell you, maybe that's good enough for you. I don't know. I'm not you. That's never going to be good enough for what Benton knows he is. What Benton knows he is will never settle for anything short of total and complete spiritual victory. Period. But not at a mass level, not at a level of all humanity's on a team. All humanity on a team equals failure, equals spiritual desolation, spiritual death, spiritual destruction. That's what all of humanity together, at least in this realm, right fucking now, I'm not on that team. Don't put me in that we. I do not identify with that group. So when that man at that truck stop said our purpose and thought he was talking about me and talking about him in the context of a spiritual discussion, I said, no, 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 sir. That's where you're wrong, partner. And I will not let you continue on based on this incorrect notion because I am not that we. I've never been that we, and I never will be that we. For I am only me, which is the I am of the highest level of super intelligent love possible vibrationally. I will not identify with anything other than that. And when I do, I will correct myself because I will not wreck myself. That's what this experience is. Can you teach yourself to stop wrecking your motherfucking self? Because make no mistake, effectively everybody listening to me is wrecking themselves. And you know I'm right. Something in you that I'm not gaslighting. I'm not trying to start a cult. I'm not trying to put myself up as your dear leader. Believe me, many of you would hope that I would make a system. And then, oh, we'll just get behind old Benton and follow him to the promised land. No, you will not. Now, I might see you there if that's even a thing, perhaps. But if I do, I'll be looking at another version of me because I can only, in that promised land, I'll only ever see other aspects of me if we're all one at the highest level. And if that's the place of meeting, I will only ever see another version of me there, right? If that's what that means, if we're all one at the highest level. What you gonna tell me? Nothing. That's why y'all can't. That's why Freedom Grower can't come in here and type things into my chat and tell me. You can't tell me nothing because you're not on this level, partner. I wish you would get on this level. I wish every damn one of you would for your own sakes. Because what I am is altruistic. Because why? Because it don't know how to be anything but altruistic. That's why. Because it's the antithesis. If the proposition is that there is no altruism in this realm of death and destruction, then love come to town and says, well, here I am. What are you talking about? See? The inverse, the antithesis, the antithesis. Well, old Benton's gotten his doctorate. Old Benton is out here, hello, my baby, hello, my darling, hello, my ragtime gal, fucking performing his doctorate, right? This is that performance. You're welcome, by the way. You're welcome. Now, if somebody finds inspiration in that, if they're willing to accept what comes along, well, so what comes along with, wow, look at Benton, and again, I'm fantasizing here, but, now we're inspired. We can do that. Knowing you can do, you can do it. You can do it. Again, am I gaslighting or just feel free to be like, well, actually, Benton, no, I don't know that. Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe consider developing your abilities to meditate and then which will then level up your own ability to scrutinize your own internal space. And perhaps you will discover that you have all these same abilities I have it's a different manifestation of the same thing. Or seems to be, right? Seemingly a different manifestation. Seemingly. One moment, we're driving. I mean, wouldn't it be nice
reduce speed,
if a person was actually going to practice all of this, which is again a fantasy, but I'm creating a fantasy. I'm in a thought experiment
reduce speed,
in this moment, at least, perhaps these moments. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to ask someone, what about this? What about that? Because a large portion of my knowledge came from observing other people and, oh, look, there's a person who knows a thing or two. And I have questions and I just go ask them specific questions and thank you for the answers. And then, I take what serves me and I leave the rest. Been doing that for most of my life. But then what's the fear? See? So the dead part, the let the dead bury the dead. So the part of you that must be killed, right? So part of what I'm describing in part is a process of killing those things about oneself that don't serve or wouldn't serve the being on this path, but would in fact serve this realm and this system of things by thwarting the progress or the potential progress. And make no mistake, that's all installed into you. This realm has made sure to install mechanism after mechanism after mechanism after mechanism after mechanism within you that will seek to thwart your own progress every motherfucking step of the way. What's that called? That's what people mean, although they don't know that this is what they mean, but this is what's meant when people say, well, we're all our own worst enemies, or, he's his own worst enemy. That's what that is. That means your psychology, the system designed and installed your psychology to thwart you at every turn. So your own worst enemy in that sense is in your head. It's in your head, zombie. Why are they zombies? Well, their own worst enemies right there in their head. How could they not be zombies? Until they transcend the zombie inside their own head. Been there, done that. Doing it now. Transcending it. Stop feeding it, it dies. What I feed lives within me. Starve everything that's aligned with death and destruction. Only feed with attention and focus and affirmation what is consistent with life, what is consistent with creation, what is consistent with love, but the real McCoy, right? Not all this bullshit out here that LARPs as if it cares about me, right? I'm not even sure. May not be anything in this place capable of giving a fuck about me. Like, it could be that dire. I have to at least consider that possibility. Now, there's a force somewhere that God has guided me and protected me and continues to bless me. Right? Yeah, my whole life, sure. Again, the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest levels of vibrational energy. Can't do anything but protect me spiritually. Can't do anything but guide me spiritually. So cursed
reduce speed,
all things that can I be aligned with or identify with death,
reduce speed,
meaning if it has to do with you and it's killable, kill it. Because I tried to kill my body, and what I found is, well, that ain't really up to me unless I'm willing to accept whatever spiritual karma would come along with, you know, being in this experience and then just taking myself out with alcohol. See, I got as close to that point as I could and thought I found the loophole, and then it's like, well, actually, turns out that I'm not able to do that. I'm just not able to do that spiritually for whatever reason. There's a truck wash. Nobody in line. It'd be nice to pull in there and get a truck wash, but I don't reckon I got the time. I've been told this truck has a pretty metallic sheen to it. Luster, I've never seen it. It's only ever been dirty in my experience, so I wouldn't know. And that's probably a metaphor for individuals in this hell realm,
reduce
the heaven or hell realm, presently manifesting as a hell realm. What I'm discovering is, the inherent beauty of my essence or nature. But in this life, I've rarely, if ever, seen it until recently. It's always been there, buried or hidden. Why would I bury or hide? Now, is this, by the way, shout out to Bazookov, the tactical nuke donator of $250 back during the holidays, the biggest donation ever by far. Shout out to you, partner. And there's been some hundos, by the way, over time, but the 250 tactical nuke, and wanted me to talk about the parable of the talents, right? And so that's probably a big part of that parable from the Bible,
reduce speed,
that my essence being one with the most super intelligent force of love possible, that is the bestowment, right? So in the analogy of the talents, it's probably the person given the most was probably
reduce speed,
born in a state most able to align themselves within themselves with that force being of greater. That's the greater blessing, is to more easily be able to identify properly, such that the person with the least. So the inverse of that is, that's the person who's the least identified with the death, destruction, depravity, decadence, fear, anxiousness, right? Trepidation of this place. So the one who was given the least is the one who buried their gift, or what? Hid their own nature in the ground, or buried it where? Buried it within themselves. And then when the master or their own true nature came around and said, hey man, what the fuck happened? Did I not give you this gift? And then the servant said, well, I know that you're a angry master, and I fear the punishment if you show up and I don't have at least what you gave to me to return to you, meaning I buried it. Whereas the other servants, in fact, the one at the highest level, in fact, multiplied it, right? Multiplied the gift in a way, in a context. See? So that's what that is. It's the person with the least is a person who's most identified with this realm. See? And the one with the greatest seemingly gift bestowment is the one who's the most closely identified with the bestowment itself. Well, guess what? I have been, that gift has been bestowed upon as well. And it's up to me to identify as closely with the bestowment as possible, also known as my birthright. That's what that is. And how can I fear if I know that I am that bestowment and that is my nature? I'm not capable of fearing the bestower showing up and saying, "Hey, I gave you the gift. Where is it?" Right? That doesn't even make sense. That's to be identified with this world. See, I'm not even capable of that at this time. Bear with me. We're having to slow down because of some very poor driving going on around us. But that's all right. We will survive or not. Um, I'm not that lucky, and that's it. I'm telling a joke there, but and that's right, Mr. Miyagi. The most super intelligent force of love possible doesn't need me, but it will certainly make use of me, seemingly. Right. So there's that. But anyway, it's time for apricots. Let me check the battery levels. Time to unplug the main phone. Probably time to plug in the backup phone or the phone I'm streaming from. So one moment. One moment, please. Yeah, we're going to have some apricots in return, most likely. All right, I'm back. Delicious apricots. Although I was distracted with my own thoughts, so didn't quite enjoy them as much as I could have. I mean, just that. By the way, thinking about food, just that aspect of life, and when we talk about all the spiritual progress type of stuff, high aspiring to a higher, something higher within oneself, arguably. Just the types of foods alone, right? This idea around taste, you know, um, especially back in my many years of illness, chronic illness, and just referring and what I was eating having a lot to do with being able to function, and more specifically, discontinuing the eating of unhealthy or highly processed or junk food, fast food, all of these things. And that the reality is, effectively, all of you enjoy that on a regular basis. Can we just face the reality that I'm the only one who never just is driving past a Taco Bell or a McDonald's or whatever and says, "Oh, okay, I can have something," and just goes in there and has something? That each one of you has some version of a muffin or a snack cake or what, or you might, but a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't like sweets." That's fine. You have something, you know, whatever your version of that is, you know. Um, and a lot of that has to do with just how designed this stuff is to where, you know, a jar of apricots probably wouldn't taste that good when the person is used to all of these artificially, like, way too strong flavors, right? And we're, in the so-called truth community, y'all don't need me to explain what that's all about. The Franken foods and all of this, big food, right? And America has to have the worst. I mean, how does America has to have the worst food supply, quality-wise, of the major industrialized nations? I don't know about China, but at least Western nations. And that's what one of the things I talked about. This guy from Congo, I happen to know. That's one of the things I know about Congo. They actually, unlike America, they have really good food. Their food is highly nutritious and of a very high quality. Guess what? So is like Jamaica. In fact, when the Jamaican sprinters, America had the best sprinters in the world for track and field for a long fucking time. And then I don't know what it is now, but it was Jamaica for a time. Maybe still is. And a lot of those Jamaicans, they said it's our food. They said everything we eat in Jamaica, we don't have food that's not organic, right? This is all we eat is the best quality food. And they said, meanwhile, we watch the Americans eating garbage. So to be an American on some level is to be eating garbage food. And I don't even mean the choices, like, yeah, consuming the healthy food. It's less unhealthy with some nutrition. That's what I'm eating, right? That's what I'm eating. Many of you are regularly consuming poor quality food with no nutritional value whatsoever, other than calories. Seriously, I used to eat that way, you know. But then, what I noticed back during when I would talk about, well, I'm eating this food or that food, and then of course getting made fun of for the sweet potatoes and all of this, which is fine. I made a joke out of it too, but you know, some people would straight up ask me, because maybe I'm describing the health benefits of a particular, like, concoction or elixir or whatever, or something I'm eating in combination with something else. And then it's like, now there's this excitement building. Oh, what does it taste like? And I'm like, taste? What are you talking about? I'm medically in a state of semi-starvation. There's nothing that doesn't taste good. If my body knows that there's nutrients in it that I need, it's delicious. There's nothing that's not delicious when a person has fallen to that level. I can assure you. When I was, my body's ability to assimilate nutrients was very, very weakened. In fact, the amount of physical food I could even put into my body was limited. So for long periods of time, I was effectively taking in a level of nutrition calorically that would be defined as semi-starvation as far as the medical system is concerned. With very little body weights, maybe being able to maintain 135 pounds now, maybe, right? Meanwhile, I eat all day. However, uh, well, that's not exactly true, but I eat much of the day. And, the fact this taste had nothing to do with it. It's like, this is fucking crunch time panic mode. I'm trying to, and especially when I finally, after like 3 weeks of nightmare with alcohol withdrawals, and then like basically sick in bed most of the day for 6 weeks or much of the day, and then but doing everything I could do on a daily basis to get back and to heal as much as possible. And some of the sleep of my life, by the way, that's how ill I was. That's how I knew I was ill. I was like, I know when I lay down tonight, I'm thinking it's just going to be blackness for 8 hours, and then I'm going to wake up. That that's a little unnerving. It's like, wow, I really am this physically sick. That it's top quality sleep every night. Uh, in that process, and then eventually, everything I ate made me sick on some level, and then not even knowing, okay, what can I eat, and then that whole process, and then initially, in order now back to truck driving, and it's like, well, I learned I can eat these foods, and they're really only accessible, at least right now, in cans, and what can, what I was eating back then, if anybody remembers. And then my dumbass father, this is something about psychology and peer groups, and watching what other people do and imitating it. And at a certain point, he's like looking at what I'm eating, or I'm talking to him about sweet potatoes or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, that's the food I like." And I'm like, "Motherfucker, what are you doing? Like, you can eat anything you want." Like, I'm the sick one here, and I shouldn't get angry, but see how the identification happened there. See, that's an example of what I've been talking about. I momentarily began to identify with the realm and the anger, right? The frustration, the resentment, and look how quickly it altered my physiology in this moment. Physiologically, right? Very quickly it happens. Yeah, see, I'm not able to perfectly practice. Anyway, I gotta get out of here. Thanks for watching. Bye.